Alright, 7.4 complex rational expressions. It means fractions on top of fractions. So we're going to use the lowest common denominator of all the fractions. Whether you have 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, you could have 1 on top over 1, 2 over 1, whatever it is. To simplify it to get it to be one fraction or one rational expression. So notice you have 4 separate fractions. So we have a 3, a 4, an 8, and a 6 are my denominators. So those are the numbers I'm worried about to get to my lowest common multiple, or my lowest common denominator of all of these is going to be 24. So we're going to use that to multiply the numerator in each fraction to divide out the denominator. So this is the original problem, and I'm multiplying everything by 24. Because I'm multiplying by a fraction, I write it like a fraction. So each problem becomes a small fraction problem on its own. 24 divided by 3 is 8. 8 times 1 is 8. 24 divided by 4 is 6. 3 times 6 is 18. 24 divided by 8 is 3. 3 times 7 is 21. So notice the denominators are dividing out. 24 divided by 6 is 4. 5 times 4 is 20. Now I add the tops, subtract the bottom, and it simplifies to just 26. Okay, so let's keep going. We're going to find the lowest common denominator, multiply everything in the numerator. Well, each fraction in the numerator and the denominator by the LCD to divide out the fractions and simplify. So here, my denominators are 2, 3, and x. So my lowest common denominator for the 2 and 3 has to be a 6, and we also have to include an x, so it has each factor. So I'm going to take my original problem, and I'm going to multiply all 4 of these fractions by 6x. Notice I'm multiplying the top to divide out the denominator. So I have 4 small fraction problems. So here, the 6 and the 2, 6 divided by 2 is 3. I'm left with 3 times x times x. 3x squared. Here the 6 and the 3, 6 divided by 3 is 2. I'll be left with 2 times x times x, 4x squared. Here x simplifies with the x, and I'm left with 6 times 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 times x times x. And when I simplify, these are like terms. I will combine these. I can GCF a 3 out of here. But I cannot simplify anymore. So whether my denominator stays like this or this is my fraction or my rational expression. Example 2, I'm only worried about denominators, so x and x squared. So my lowest common denominator has to be x squared, the greatest number of x's. So I write my original problem, and I'm going to multiply everything by x squared. Is that too light? So when I'm multiplying a fraction, I put it over 1. This is not a fraction. I don't need to. I can put them both over 1. It's not going to change anything. Multiply everything by x squared. Maybe I'll use a darker color next time. So nothing divides out here. So it's just x squared. X squared divided by x, 1x will be divided out, and I'm left with x times 1, which is x. Here again, I just have x squared, and here, these divide out to 1 whole. Anything over itself is 1. Now, I have to factor to simplify. In the numerator, I have a GCF of x. In the denominator, I have a difference of perfect squares. The x plus 1 divides out to 1. So my simplified rational expression or fraction is x over x minus 1. You cannot cancel these x's. This is whatever number x is, it's 1 less than that. Okay, my denominators are 5, a, and 5. This is all one fraction. So I'm going to multiply everything by the lowest common denominator, which is a 5 and an a. Here, my 5's divide out to 1, and I'm left with a times 1. Here, my a's divide out, and I'm left with 5 times 1. Down here, my 5's will cancel out, and I'm left with a times 5 minus a. Now, I didn't distribute that, just in case I can simplify. Down here, I would have to factor anyway, and I can. A is positive, a is negative. 5 is negative, 5 is positive. These are exact opposites. Opposites reduce to negative 1. So my answer is negative 1 over a. So I'll say that again. Think about if a was a 7. 7 minus 5 is positive 2. 5 minus 7 is negative 2. Anything over itself but opposite signs reduce to negative 1. Example 4, I'm not worried about this. It's not a fraction. My denominators are x and x squared. My lowest common denominator is going to be x squared. I will multiply everything by x squared. There's nothing to simplify. This goes to x to the 4th. Here, 1x will divide out. I'll be left with x. Here, my x squares simplify, and I'm left with 2. Oops, cut that off. I apologize. This is already simplified. I cannot simplify this any further. Here, my denominator are x and x cubed. So my lowest common denominator is x cubed. Multiply both by x cubed, that's a 3. So 1x goes away. I'll be left with 4x squared. Here, this divides out to 1 whole. So I'm left with just 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2x squared. Here, 4 fractions. 2a squared, 2b squared, an a and a b. My lowest common denominator is going to be 2a squared, b squared. 2a squared, b squared. Multiplying everything by the same thing to keep it equivalent. Whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. Make sure we can see this. Minus, plus. Okay. Here my 2's divide out and my a squared. I'm left with just b squared times 1. Over here, my nails are a mess. I apologize. I need to paint them. 2's b squared, I'm left with a squared times 1. Down here, only one of my a's will divide out. So let's be careful. I'm left with 5 times 2, which is 10, and a, and b squared. Here, again, just one of my b's will go away. I'm left with 10 a squared b. So we will factor and see if we can simplify. Here I have a difference of perfect squares. B minus a, b plus a. Here I have a GCF of a lot, so let's see what we got. I got a 10 in both of them. I have at least one A in both of them, and one B. So I'll be left with a B here, plus A, which will simplify with that. And my answer is B minus A over 10AB.